Most people don't realize this. Christmas, as we know it, has almost nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. Historians agree. He was probably born in spring, not winter. So why December 25th? Because thousands of years before Christianity, this same moment of the year was already sacred. The Romans called it Saturnalia, the Persians celebrated Yalda, the Celts called it Alban Arthan, and far in the east, in ancient India, sages called it Uttarayana, the turning point when the sun begins its journey north and light returns to the world. What if this was the real meaning behind Christmas? Not a date of birth, but a cosmic reminder that even in our darkest season, light always finds its way back. There's something magical about late December, isn't there? The smell of pine and cinnamon, the glow of lights against dark windows, families gathering around tables filled with food. Maybe you're someone who loves this time of year, the rituals, the traditions, the feeling that something special is happening. Or maybe you're someone who feels a bit disconnected from it all, going through the motions, but quietly wondering what it's really about. Either way, here's something fascinating. Christmas, celebrated on December 25th, has almost nothing to do with the actual birth of Jesus. Historians pretty much agree he was likely born in spring. So, why December? Because when Christianity spread across the Roman Empire, it did something remarkably intelligent. It absorbed and transformed celebrations that had already existed for thousands of years. Celebrations of the winter solstice, December 21st, in the Northern Hemisphere, marks the longest night of the year, the point of maximum darkness. And from that moment forward, something cosmic happens. The days begin to grow longer again. Light returns. And our ancestors, across every culture, celebrated this moment as sacred. The Romans had Saturnalia. The Norse celebrated Yule. The Celts had Alban Arthan. The Persians, Yalda. And in the East, the Chinese celebrated Dongji, while the Japanese observed Toji. Each culture had its own way of honoring this turning point. Darkness has reached its limit. And now, inevitably, light returns. One of the oldest and most profound understandings of this moment comes from ancient India, from the Vedic tradition. More than 3,500 years ago, these sages already understood the solstice not merely as an astronomical event, but as a spiritual portal. Today, we're going to explore how this ancient wisdom can help us navigate the modern Christmas season, not by looking for light in store windows, in presents, or in other people's expectations, but by discovering the light that has always been within us. In the Vedic tradition, the year is divided into two great cosmic movements, based on the apparent path of the sun across the sky. Dakshinayana, the sun's journey southward, begins at the summer solstice in June and continues until December. It is the period of externalization, of activity, planting, working in the world. The days grow shorter. Darkness increases. Then comes Uttarayana, the sun's journey northward. It begins at the winter solstice in December and continues until June. This is the period of internalization, of spiritual growth, of inner harvest. The days grow longer, light returns, and here's the profound insight. For the Vedic sages, Uttarayana wasn't just an external phenomenon, it was an auspicious time for inner renewal, a moment when the very structure of the cosmos favored awakening. The festival that marks this transition is called Makar Sankranti, celebrated in mid-January when the sun enters the constellation of Capricorn. It's one of India's most ancient festivals, mentioned in texts over 2,000 years old. But the energetic shift, the real turning of light, happens now, at the December solstice, exactly when we celebrate Christmas. So why is it that even surrounded by family, presents, food, and lights, we sometimes feel something missing. The Vedic tradition has a word for this: Maya. Maya doesn't mean the world is fake or unreal. It means we see it through a veil. We believe happiness comes from outside, from having the right things, the right people, the right circumstances, and modern Christmas is this idea taken to its extreme. We're told, buy the perfect gifts, host the perfect dinner, create the perfect atmosphere, and then you'll be happy. Happiness is out there, in that future moment when everything aligns perfectly. But the ancient Vedic texts, composed some 3,000 years ago, were already warning about this mistake. There's a story in the Chandogya Upanishad about a young man named Narada who approaches the sage Sanat Kumara. Narada was incredibly learned. He knew the Vedas, music, astronomy, mathematics. He was the ancient equivalent of someone with multiple degrees, impressive credentials, all the external signs of success. But he comes to the sage and says, "Master, I've studied all this, but I still haven't found peace. I still feel empty." Sanat Kumara responds, "Everything you've studied is just names and forms. You've accumulated external knowledge, but you haven't touched reality. And reality, Narada, is within you." The sage then teaches about what he calls bhuma, which means fullness or completeness. He says, the one who discovers this fullness within themselves finds joy that doesn't come and doesn't go, joy that doesn't depend on circumstances. This is exactly what happens during the modern Christmas season. We accumulate names and forms, presents, decorations, events, expectations, but none of it touches the true source of joy. It's like trying to quench your thirst by collecting pictures of water. The Vedic sages understood something profound about this winter season. They saw it as a time when nature itself invites us to turn inward. The outer world grows dark and still. The earth rests. And this is precisely when we have the chance to rediscover our inner light. They had a word for that light: Atman. You can think of it as your true self, the part of you that exists beneath all the worry, the stress, the roles you play. It's not the self that worries about gifts or family dinners. It's deeper than all of that. The Katha Upanishad tells one of the most beautiful stories about this. A young boy named Nachiketa, through a series of events, meets Yama, the Lord of Death. Yama, impressed by the boy's courage, offers him anything he wants: wealth, long life, pleasures beyond imagination. But Nachiketa refuses. He says, "These things are temporary. Everything you offer will eventually disappear. I want to know what doesn't die. I want to understand what remains when everything else is gone." Yama is deeply impressed. He says, "Most people choose the pleasant over the good. They choose temporary happiness over lasting truth. But you've chosen wisdom." Then Yama teaches Nachiketa about the Atman, the true self. He says, the self is smaller than the smallest, greater than the greatest. It resides in the heart of every living being. One who is free from grasping, with mind and senses at peace, beholds the glory of the self and becomes free from sorrow. Think about that for a moment. Free from sorrow. Not because everything went perfectly, not because you got everything you wanted, but because you recognized something unchanging within yourself. This is the radical teaching at the heart of Vedic wisdom. Your peace, your joy, your sense of completeness, they don't depend on what happens outside you. They depend on remembering what you truly are beneath all layers of identity, expectation, and desire. Now, you might be thinking, "That's beautiful philosophy, but I still have to buy presents, cook dinner, deal with difficult relatives, and manage everyone's expectations. How does ancient wisdom help with that?" This is where the Vedic understanding becomes incredibly practical. The sages weren't suggesting that you abandon the world and sit in a cave. They were suggesting that you engage with the world, but from a different center. There's a concept in the Bhagavad Gita called yajna. It's often translated as sacrifice or offering, but it means something deeper. Yajna is the art of doing things without being attached to outcomes. You act, not as a transaction, but as an offering. In the Gita, Krishna explains, "Perform your duties, for action is better than inaction. Even maintaining your body requires action, but work without clinging to the fruits of your actions." Applied to Christmas, this changes everything. You still prepare the meal, buy the presents, host the gathering, but you do it as an offering, not as a strategy. You're not cooking to get praise. You're not buying gifts to earn affection. You're simply expressing generosity, connection, care, and the result? When things don't go perfectly, when someone doesn't appreciate your gift, when the dinner burns, when tensions rise, you are not shattered, because your peace was never dependent on everything going right. You offered what you could, and that was enough. Imagine this. You spend hours preparing the perfect dinner, planning, cooking, setting the table with love, and then your sister arrives late, barely looks at the food, and starts complaining. Normally, you'd feel hurt, angry, unseen. But if you approached it as yajna, as offering, the energy shifts. You cooked because cooking was love itself. Whether your sister appreciates it or not doesn't change the purity of your act. You are free. This doesn't mean being passive or letting people walk over you. It means your worth doesn't depend on their reaction. And the paradox is, when you stop needing appreciation, it tends to appear more naturally. The Vedic sages also understood something crucial about family during festivals. They knew gatherings would trigger old wounds, old patterns, old roles, and they had deep wisdom for that too. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna stands on the battlefield, about to face his own relatives. He is paralyzed. He says to Krishna, "These are my family, my teachers, people I've known all my life. How can I fight them?" Krishna's answer isn't simple tolerance. He says, "Look deeper. See the eternal in everyone, even those who challenge you. We are not these temporary roles or personalities. Beneath the uncle who rants, the aunt who criticizes, the sibling who competes, there is something timeless." The Isha Upanishad says, "Whoever sees all beings in the self, and the self in all beings, loses all fear." Imagine sitting at the Christmas table with that awareness. Your uncle is ranting. Your aunt is judging. Your sibling is bragging. And you don't take it personally. You see consciousness expressing itself through countless forms. None of it separate from you. You don't have to agree, or even stay in the room, but you're not ruled by them. Their behavior doesn't decide your inner state. There's a story in the Mahabharata about a sage named Vidura, known for his calm wisdom. During a great feast, someone insults him publicly, trying to provoke him. Everyone expects anger, defense, reaction. But Vidura smiles and says, "When someone offers you a gift, and you do not accept it, to whom does it belong?" The person answers, "It stays with the giver." Vidura nods. "Exactly. You've offered me insult, but I do not accept it, so it remains with you." That is the power of seeing from Atman, from your deeper self. You don't have to accept every emotional gift that's handed to you. You can simply let it remain where it began. And now, let's talk about gifts, the other big source of holiday stress. The pressure to buy the right thing, spend the right amount, prove your care in measurable ways. The Vedic tradition calls this dana, giving. But dana isn't about transaction. It's about the spirit behind it. One of the Upanishads says, "Give with faith, give with abundance, give with kindness, give with humility." Notice what's not there. It doesn't say, "Give expensive things." Give things that impress. Give to get something back. True generosity comes from inner fullness, not from trying to fill a void. When you give from that place, the gift itself becomes secondary. The act of giving becomes joy, and whether the other person loves it or not, you've already received the real gift, the joy of giving itself. The Bhagavad Gita says, "A gift is pure when it is given from the heart, to the right person, at the right time, with no expectation in return." This is the light that Uttarayana invites us to rediscover. Not the light of decorations or validation, but the quiet, radiant light of your own being. So how do we actually live this? How do we move from understanding these ideas to feeling them in the middle of daily life? The Vedic tradition offers simple practices for this season, this movement from darkness to light, from outer noise to inner peace. The first is called Sandhya, meaning twilight or junction. It's the sacred meeting point, day into night, or in this case, one year into another. Find just 5 minutes, sit quietly, close your eyes, and simply watch your breath. Inhale, exhale, notice the pause in between. As you do, something shifts. You become the witness. You're not the thoughts about stress or perfection. You're the awareness that watches them. You're not the anxiety about family dinners. You're the calm behind it all. This is Atman recognizing itself. Even 5 minutes a day through the Christmas season can change how you experience everything. The second practice involves sound. In the Vedic world, certain sounds are direct paths to peace. One of the most ancient is the Gayatri mantra. It goes, Om Bhurbhuvasva Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. It means, we meditate on the glory of the light that illumines all realms. May that light awaken our understanding. You don't need to know Sanskrit for it to work. The vibration itself carries harmony. The Gayatri is a mantra of light, perfect for this solstice season. Chant it aloud, whisper it, or repeat it silently once a day. It anchors you in clarity before the day begins. The third practice is one of gratitude. Before your meal, just pause. Look at the food. Truly look. See the earth that grew it, the rain that nourished it, the hands that prepared it. In the Vedic view, food isn't just fuel. It's condensed sunlight, the earth offering itself to sustain you. Then, silently offer it back, not to a deity, but to life itself. Acknowledge, the offering is sacred. What is offered is sacred. The fire that receives is sacred, and the one who offers is sacred. This meal, this gathering, this moment, all of it is sacred. When you eat with that awareness, even one meal becomes peace. It's no longer about perfection or appreciation. It's about connection. These simple practices create a new foundation for the season. You're not trying to control the outer world. You're returning to the source inside. The Mundaka Upanishad describes this beautifully. 2 birds sitting on the same tree. One bird eats the fruits, sweet and bitter, restless and comparing. The other simply watches, calm and free. During Christmas, most of us are the first bird, chasing sweetness, but we can choose to be the second bird, the one who watches, who sees the bigger picture, who knows peace isn't in the fruit, but in awareness itself. This is what Uttarayana offers us, a cosmic invitation to shift from surface to depth. The light isn't something we have to create or buy. The light is what we are. As you move through this season, remember what every ancient culture knew. The darkest night carries the promise of light. The coldest winter hides the seed of spring, and the hardest moments of your life hold the beginning of your awakening. The Vedic sages saw the solstice not as a date, but as an opportunity to remember something eternal within the temporary, something unchanging within change, something luminous within darkness. You don't need the perfect Christmas to find peace. You don't need everyone to act right or every plan to go perfectly. You only need to remember what the Chandogya Upanishad whispered thousands of years ago. Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. You are the light you've been seeking. So as the days begin to grow longer again, as Uttarayana begins its journey, let it be a symbol of your own return to light. Not because you fixed everything outside, but because you remembered what you've always been beneath it all. The light returns, because that's what light does. And you are that light. You always have been.